Welcome back to Sports Wrap-Up. Bob Kuszynski in studio with Steve Manson, the hockey man.
How you doing, sir?
Always great having you. And we were just talking during the commercial break because we were talking about Dingus Day. Steve, you've married a lovely Polish bride who you say is related to the top quarterback from the area, Ron Jaworski.
Well, her cousin is married to Ron, and the lovely Caroline, my wife of 35 years. It's fantastic.
So I'm sure you get free tickets to any NFL game you want.
No, it doesn't actually work that way.
Because it's second removed.
Yeah, something
on
like
the
that.
wife's side.
But he doesn't
Sabres,
ask me for hockey tickets.
Ron Jaworski? He probably knows a few people in town.
I would say so,
get free tickets, I would think. Buffalo Sabres, Darcy Reiger. He's got until 3 o'clock Wednesday afternoon to make a trade, although I think it's actually 6 o'clock, because isn't it on the West Coast?
No, it's 3 o'clock. It's 3 o'clock.
They got to do it by noon.
They got to do it by noon. That's why they make it through 3.
Because I know that was a discrepancy one year.
See, the deals actually would be announced after 3. The paperwork or the intent of the paperwork has to be into the NHL office by 3 o'clock Eastern. Yep.
The Sabres, we were talking before the show. You don't feel that this deadline really is that significant to them right now?
No, because there's a number of deals that can certainly be done before 3 o'clock tomorrow. Players, if you can get the right price. But again, to me, I think some of the major trades or some of the major moves will probably be made during the draft in late June this year. And I think that's when you're going to see, is there a possibility of one of the major players going tomorrow? Absolutely, if he can get the right price. It just is, I don't think he's under the gun that most people think that he is.
Now, this is a disclaimer alert.
Yeah.
Disclaimer alert. We're taping this show Tuesday afternoon. So if something happened Tuesday afternoon, they're watching the show at
everything that I say in this show will change before you actually see it.
How did they not know about this? Well, if something changed after we tape the show, then we'll talk about it next week. But I just want people to understand that. For those who are shocked that it's not live, that's just the magic of television.
Yes.
But so he trades. He doesn't trade. Yeah, he trades Robin Reiger to the Kings for 2 second-round draft picks, 1 in 14, 1 in 15. Leopold went. That was for a second-round pick, although I think that one is in this year's draft.
Yeah, that one's in this year's draft, and they also got a 5th round, but it becomes a 4th round if St. Louis wins a playoff series this year.
All right, Reiger. Now he just brought this guy in last year.
Yep.
Would this have been considered a successful signing?
No, I don't think so. If you remember back, it was at the draft time a year ago. They flew out to Calgary to convince him to waive his no-trade clause and come east. I think Reiger has played okay, but he hasn't been the leader on the defensive core that I think they were hoping for. And so, in a way, I think this is a failed trade. And getting 2 draft choices, 1 in 14 and 1 in 15, I mean, it sounds good. You got 2 second-round picks. Well, if they end up using them as draft picks, you're talking 2 or 3 years away for the draft pick to actually mature enough to be able to play in Buffalo. So you're talking 5, 6 years for either one of these picks to actually become something that's going to be usable or tangible, unless they're repackaged in other deals.
All right, let's talk about the 800-pound gorilla in the room.
Yep.
And I'm not referring to our engineer. Let's talk
I've been trying to lose some weight.
Okay. Let's talk about. So the crew's laughing at that one. Let's talk about the fact that Darcy Reiger, who just got a new contract prior to the beginning of this shortened season.
Yes.
There are many out there who say, well, they must not be making a change, general manager, because they're allowing Reiger to make these moves. Do you agree with that?
No, I don't. Right now, these 2 moves, neither Leopold or Reiger was going to be, Robin Reiger was going to be back next year. Okay, that was almost a given. The defensive core has been one of the major letdowns in this season, and I don't think this is something that's a major concern, even if a new GM is brought in. And if they do make a major trade between now and 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, I'm sure the upper management's going to have to sign off on it.
Well, but I guess it begs the question, if you're going to make the move, and so I guess that's why I'm thinking they won't, wouldn't you bring somebody in to make these moves now instead of waiting until...
No, you don't. Changing GMs, it has happened, but it's not the norm in the National Hockey League. Plus the fact, I honestly feel it's time. And I'm going to say this right up front. I like Darcy Reiger. I've always liked him. I've gotten along real well with him, both professionally and personally. And I think he's a fine evaluator of talent, and I think he's done a pretty good job. I think he deserves a lot of credit for keeping the team going during the bankruptcy and all that the whole schmozzle that was the whole deal of which, you know, you're well aware of.
Yeah.
And he gets a lot of credit for that. But it's now time for a change. It's now time to start a new era. It's just time for a change. I think the fans deserve it. It's been 40-odd years. There's still no Stanley Cup banners hanging down in the ceiling. Obviously, Darcy's not responsible for all 40 years, but he is for the last 15 years or so. It's time to make a move, and I think there's 3 great candidates out there right now that if you were going to make a move for a general manager, that would be, I think.
And they are?
Well, in no particular order, but obviously one that's been talked about a lot, Rick Dudley, assistant GM in Montreal, has done a tremendous job wherever he's gone. Former Sabre, which I don't think disqualifies him, even though I'd like to see, you know, some outside blood brought in, but he was a former Sabre so long ago, I don't think it really matters. I think he's done a tremendous job wherever he's been. The one knock on Rick is he doesn't stay in one place very long. He moves around very quickly.
Is that by his own choice or somebody else?
I think it's been both. Okay, and there's been some circumstances too. But he was the architect that built Chicago before they won the Stanley Cup, even though he had left, but they won the following year, and he's the guy that put them together. And he did a great job down in Tampa, certainly had a lot to do with their Stanley Cup down there. He kept the Florida Panther organization afloat. He was also GM in Ottawa and rebuilt them. And he's been assistant general manager in more places than I can remember. And I think he's the kind of guy, and he's done a great job in Montreal this year. I think he's the kind of guy that the Sabres could certainly use. I think the second pick is also another former Sabre, Don Luce. He, of course,
I like Luce.
Don is a behind-the-scenes, quiet, peaceful guy. And he just does a great job. He's a tremendous talent evaluator. He's, of course, with Philadelphia right now. And Philadelphia's having a down year, but the last couple of years have been really good for Philadelphia. He's brought in a lot of talent down there. And he did a great job when he was in Buffalo. And I think he would certainly be a guy that, and by the way, Dudley and Luce still live in Western New York. The third guy, and I think probably the top guy on my list would be Brian Burke, the guy that got fired in Toronto. And let's look at the results. Toronto's now going to be in the playoffs for the first time in 7 years. He built that team. They haven't made really one change since the team he put together. He got fired, 4 days before the season started. They promoted all his assistants and his scouts and everybody. No one else was fired other than him. And the reason he was fired in Toronto is there was a change in ownership during the summer, and the new owners, and Burke is like as you mentioned, the 800-pound gorilla in the room. Burke craves attention. He's really outgoing, and I think he would be something we haven't had in Buffalo. He does a great job. He won the Stanley Cup in Anaheim, and he's done a nice job in Toronto.
You're saying there were new owners and they made a change?
Yes.
I haven't seen that in this town.
Yeah, I think
that's the incredible thing about. First of all, those are
there's one thing
names.
I want to say about Burke before we get off.
Go ahead.
He made a speech about 3 weeks ago up in Toronto at the Conn Smythe dinner, and he talked about how much he really loved Toronto, and it was a shame he got fired, and he really wanted Toronto to do well. But then he also said, let's be honest, I'm the one that built this team. That's what Brian Burke is. That's the kind of guy he is, okay? And he said, I really want to be a GM again. I really have the passion, and I guarantee you, I will come back and haunt Toronto for the rest of my life. Right there and then, he had me.
He had you at haunt.
He had you at haunt, yeah.
Darcy Reiger was hired by Larry Quinn under the Knox ownership. Mm-hmm. Is that your phone playing?
Yes, it is.
I don't know if I can
it's
hear
gone.
that.
It's gone.
Steve's fan. I think that was Brian Burke calling you, thanking you for the recommendation. Darcy Reiger is hired by Larry Quinn under Knox ownership.
Yep.
Nordy Knox, actually, at the time.
Right.
Then he survived the Regises taking over and Adelphia taking over the team. Both he and Lindy.
Well, how could Regas have gotten rid of him? They'd just gone to the Stanley Cup final with a team that John Muckler had built.
Right.
Okay.
Then he survived new ownership under Tom Golisano. But, of course, Larry Quinn returned.
Came back.
Who originally
and in
hired,
an interview I did with Larry Quinn, said, why would I fire the 2 guys I hired?
Right.
So it was.
And I've been told by insiders that Golisano did want to make a change.
Yep.
He got talked out of that by Quinn. Now he survived new ownership under Terry Pegula, who, I mean, everybody talks about Ted Black, but
Ted Black's
Sawyer is another guy in the. I mean, there's a couple of guys behind the scenes that are giving, I think, Pegula maybe as much advice as anybody.
Mm-hmm. I just, you know what? Pegula made a very statement on the day he bought the team that Lindy Ruff ain't going nowhere.
Yeah.
That's his exact words. Well, Lindy Ruff is gone. Okay? Darcy Reiger, I was very, very disappointed with the choice Reiger made of the new head coach, even though it's interim.
Hold that thought.
You got it.
Because we're going to take a break. We're going to pay some of the bills. Got to pay for that drink I bought at Sobieski's.
And I'm going to turn off my phone.
Tent yesterday. We'll be back right after this. More with Steve Manson.